for Anxiety and OCD, Episode 9. Today we are talking to Erica Kessee, who is a good friend of mine and just fellow entrepreneur. She is going to share with us something that she created called Try On Therapy. I'll let her tell you more about that. But one thing that I want you to pick up, hopefully from this conversation, is an understanding that there are many different types of counselors and many different personalities of counselors and many different counseling approaches that those counselors utilize. And this can really help you in terms of if you're processing, searching for a counselor or what you might need from a counselor. And of course, I couldn't have Erica on the show and not ask her about her experience with racial issues and mental health in the Black church. But I was not prepared for what she was going to say. So let's go ahead and dive in to this episode with Erica. Okay, Miss Erica. So you and I used to share an office space together, right?
It was a blessing too, because another colleague told me about you and that you had an office. And I was like, yes! I was so excited because I was able to be in a space and start my practice in my own office. And it was ready for me to hang my shingle.
Yeah. And we have to let people understand that this office space was very small and you somehow found a way to make it super cute and homey, and you had someone help you decorate. It was adorable. It's very adorable.
I was very proud of my space. Loved my little space, my little couch. It was,
but everybody, I was like the smallest couch.
When you enlist a decorator, they are able to they work wonders. So it's like, okay, please. And
yes,
it was
absolutely.
so cozy and sweet.
Right. Yeah. So one of my favorite Erica stories that I have to tell is that we have a lot of things in common. We have really a passion for people getting really good help and treatment and reducing stigma. And we have no problem talking about difficult issues, but we're our temperaments are a little bit different in terms that I'm kind of quiet and somber and calm. And Erica is like, exciting and exuberant and full of energy and life. And so that was very interesting. So there would be times where I just kind of like go down to your end of the hall and just kind of gently turn up the sound machine. Do you remember that?
Yes. That's been part, like when I was working in community mental health and in other places when there's other people around. It's always been noted that I am having a great time in my sessions. And I am. I'm laughing. I'm, enjoying the time that I spend with the people who are in the room with me. So
yes, and it is okay to laugh.
It carries outside of the room. And so it may, need the sound machine to be brought up a little higher.
I think that's an interesting thing because we're going to get into this a little bit later about different therapists having different personalities and different fits. And so this is just kind of a little intro of one example of that. But tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got to where you are today professionally.
Okay, yes. Okay, I am Erica Kessee, CEO and founder of Your Goal Concierge. I also have a service within Your Goal Concierge called Try On Therapy. Your Goal Concierge mission is to provide services, support, enhancement, and encouragement to those who are in helping professions. So counselors, coaches, nurses, frontline people who have had to go out to, go out of the house, even though even in the middle of quarantine. Those are the people that I serve and people who are trying to create businesses. Try On Therapy is a service specifically because I have the master's in clinical mental health counseling and civic leadership, where I wanted to make sure that individuals, both the public, had the right fit for their therapist, and that therapists had opportunities for networking, opportunities to show their craft, and opportunities to offer services to others and kind of show what they're good at, and to make sure that individuals are with them that work well with them. Like, every counselor coach knows, oh, this person is like the perfect client for me, because they have a lot of the same story that you have. So you understand how to work with them and get them to the next level. So trial therapy is that. It is an immersive learning experience for individuals. So individuals who have the temporary license, which that's what I have, or a master's in clinical mental health counseling, can provide this immersive learning experience to people so they can at least get a taste of therapy, because there's a lot of stigma associated with getting mental health services.
Right. And I remember you came by my office one day and you were so excited and you were like, Carrie.
I did that a lot.
And Erica was so excited because she said, Carrie, you know how you try on clothes? And I was like, at the store. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, what if you could try on therapy? And I was like, what in the world are you talking about? Like, this is a little out there, Erica. I don't know about all this. Tell us about how that originated, because you did actually create this for the Mental Health Marketing Conference originally, right?
Yes, that's exactly. Okay, so the Mental Health Marketing Conference, I started going to the conference while I was at Lipscomb. So I got my master's in clinical, well, both masters, from Lipscomb University. And so there was an opportunity as a student to go to the Mental Health Marketing Conference. I got there and I looked around and I saw all these marketers, and I thought, where are the clinicians? Okay. They don't have a seat at this table when they're supposed to be marketing for mental health services. So only the clinicians kind of know the things that need to be, how to market to the people they're trying to bring in the doors. And so I spoke to the founder, which was Austin Harris, about, incorporating more clinicians. And so I did speak the next year. And it was that third year that we spoke about having clinicians at the table. Then the third year was, hey, we're going to actually pilot trial therapy and let these marketers experience therapy, because they had never experienced therapy, have no idea how they are going to be marketing something they've never experienced. Everybody else gets, something free. If somebody's going to market something, they get a product free so they can say, I buy into this product. Well,
like a sample.
That's what trial therapy is. It's a sample of therapy. And the sample is actually, it's not watered down or anything, but we call it an immersive learning experience because we don't want to say it's therapy. Right. Therapy is, it's just a crucial relationship. So you don't want to say that you're entering into that relationship until you're truly entering into a relationship with a person that's going to be taking you to the level you need to go to according to your treatment plan. So we offered it. And in that time, I asked Carrie, even though I went over there to her office, it's like, I just want to do this trial therapy. I was actually trying to get her to come be a part of the and be a trial therapist, because that's how I am. I'm a connector. I'm always thinking about opportunities to reel people in. And Carrie was one of the trial therapists that year. And we saw about, I can't remember the numbers. I do have an annual report. If anybody is interested in it, you can reach out to me for it. I have the numbers in there. But with every person that we did have people come, and every person that I met, which I was there also exhibiting, I did have a conversion of a person that stayed with me and is still with me from that conference, that very first time.
Wow.
Then every single year we've done trial and therapy there, and they ask us to come back every year.
That's awesome.
Put trial and therapy in there because there's marketers, people who've never experienced it, and it's just valuable. It just makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. And now you've expanded to other places, and it's not just for the conference, and it's not just for marketers. So what other locations have you been to where you've utilized this?
Yes. Okay. So because of the success of the Mental Health Marketing Conference, I also have done it as it's very, trial therapy is very flexible. So we've been to the Sexual Assault Center here in Nashville, Tennessee, and we did it as, they were talking about a particular thing that could trigger individuals. So there was therapists there who could be available for anyone that was triggered. But then we also provided sessions at the end of the conference, and I closed 2 people from that. When I say closed, they converted into clients. Then we also, I've done the Sexual Assault Center twice. And then we've been to, after the second time doing the Mental Health Marketing Conference, I met a lady with HCA, Health Corporations of America, and they had a hiring event at Top Golf, which is a place where people can do golf and shoot their ball.
They're trying to hit a target, right? Yeah. They're hitting the golf ball into a target. I've never done it before, but it looks
it's fun. So much fun, Carrie. You gotta do it. Okay. But it's a cool place. And so we went there and we provided group therapy. So trial group.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we had therapists there. They wanted group. They wanted to hit as many people as possible. And so we did 3 30-minute group sessions on self-care with the topic of self-care.
Okay.
It was amazing. I had a wonderful time. They're going to invite us back next year. So I think that as soon as someone tries it, even it's so funny when you try on therapy, usually you convert to a client. When a corporation tries this try on therapy, then they usually want me to come back every year to continue to do it for the individuals that they're serving.
Yeah, it's been a great success for you. And I think it's opened a lot of people's minds to what therapy is. Like maybe people have ideas that it's something mystical or they're really uncomfortable about it. Like it's this big mystery. Like what in the world do you do in there?
Yeah, that's what part of our marketing, what happens behind those closed doors. A part of the marketing is also learn the product of therapy. The product of therapy is sitting with that therapist. The therapist is the product.
Right.
And the therapist you need to have a relationship with that person and get the right fit with that person. So I recommend you not just meet someone and say, okay, I'm going to go through therapy with that person. I feel like you should shop around. Get a sample here and a sample there of how they flow, how it feels in the session, what things they say that they want to, the methods that they would like to show you. And mainly I would have to say how it feels, because if you have if you're doing some transference or anything else, which is when you feel some feelings about this person and you've never met them, but they bring up things in you that are not so good, then they don't need to be your therapist. You need to get somebody else. You
mean if they remind you of your mother who you have a strained relationship with, it may not be the best fit.
Yes, it's not a good fit.
So talk about that a little bit, because I think a lot of times people approach finding a therapist like they would a doctor. Like, okay, well, maybe who's in my insurance network, or who's the person that's within the 10-mile radius of me, and looking for a therapist really needs to be a very different process than that.
Oh my goodness, Carrie, I just had a bright idea, and maybe we should collaborate on that. Oh, I'm sorry, this is how I am. But yes, it should be a different process. And you're right. Oh, well, let's talk through that process now. It can't be that way. It can't be So that's why they give you, when your insurance gives you a list, they give you the list is pretty big.
Right.
You need to go through and call through. And first of all, if they don't call you back, or they call you back like 3 months later, then you know it's not a good fit. Like, they're not responsive. There's some issue that's there that you don't need to keep pursuing. But also the whole insurance rate, also the radius is maybe a problem as well. It's like you have to decide that this is life or death, because it is. A lot of times people don't see our mental health, our brains, and our emotional health as a life and death situation, but it is. Because most of the time when people come to us, it's a conflict that's happened. That's just...
They're in a crisis of some kind. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or they've been holding on to this crisis for years, and they finally, it just boils over, and they're finally reaching out. And so you can't decide that it's going to have to be with this person within a radius, or a person that's maybe the first person that you get to answer the phone.
I think the process of finding a therapist is really important. And I can only share from my own personal experience of finding a therapist. There was one period of my life where I really wanted to see a female therapist. And I thought, that person is going to be someone who I would feel more comfortable with. I don't feel comfortable with talking with a male right now. But then after I went through some other things, and I was really looking to get back into the dating world after my divorce. And I just said, I want to talk to a male about this, because I feel like I need that perspective. I need that opposite sex perspective of some things that I'm dealing with, or some questions that I have. And that was just so helpful. So even sometimes that male or female distinction, sometimes people feel more comfortable with a younger therapist. Sometimes people feel more comfortable with an older therapist. And I think don't feel bad, because maybe it sounds kind of superficial, like, oh, I'm ruling that person out because they're too old or they're too young. But it's who you're going to be able to connect with personally. And other people are going to be able to connect with that other therapist personally. So it's okay.
It is. And I'm so happy you're affirming and confirming that it is okay to have your preferences. Just like right now, because of all of the, I'll have to say, Black awareness and racial awareness that's happening, a lot, I've gotten more people contact me who are, Black or people of color, because they need counseling, but also because they are reaching out to someone that looks like them.
Right.
And so it's important to decide to pick who you want, and then even somebody that looks like you may not be a good fit either. You need the right temperament. Like, I know I need an action-oriented counselor. Like, I don't want one that just sits there with me, because I will take over the session. Like I'm taking over right now.
You're fine.
Carrie knows what she's up to, what she's getting into. So, like, I need someone that's going to say, this is your homework. This is what you need to do. Give me some parameters. I need some CBT. I need some DBT. Well, let me explain those things. Cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy. So I need these things for myself. I know that. And
the structure of those types of interventions are helpful for you.
Yeah. So that's something to think about too when you're trying on therapy, is the structure. Like, what is the structure that works best for you? Ask, especially in a trial therapy session, you can always ask a therapist about maybe internal family systems, or psychoanalytic therapy, or EMDR. Right. Or like, I'm specialized in playing expressive arts therapy, so talk through what that looks like. So it's good to kind of build maybe a listing of things that maybe sounds like something you want to try. And you can talk through that. For example, when you're talking about male and female thing, the one of the people who came and did the mental health marketing conference she was an exhibitor there. So she wasn't a marketer, but she worked in one of the nonprofits. And so she wanted to test out or try out a male. So she was able to test out one of the males there, because I try to have it at the conference like black,
diversity,
white, diversity, there we go, and males, because they're scarce. They really are.
Sure.
Anyway, so I had actually a black male. She was able to meet with him, and she was the one that converted to see me, because she got a taste of him. It didn't fit, and then she decided to go and be with me, and we did great work. So, but she did get that out of her system. Like, she understands, no, a male isn't a good fit for me. And so then she decided to try something else, which was great.
Right. I think it's important too that once you talk with a therapist, whether that's over the phone or once you meet with them in person, they may be diving into certain topics because of their training and their worldview and how they were trained as a therapist in specific different types of therapy, just like Erica was talking about earlier, that person may be kind of guiding you down a path that you might not want to go to. So they may be an insight-based therapist, and you may say, I need an action step, or vice versa. Maybe you're not ready for an action step and you're just going to therapy because you're trying to learn about yourself. Maybe I'm very upfront that I'm very interested in people's past and trauma and difficult experiences that they've had, because that's the lens that I work from. But not everybody is like that. Some people will say, I don't want to hear about your childhood. I just want to know what's going on right now. And so it's important to know those distinctions in terms of finding a fit. And if you find someone that's going in one direction, it's okay for you to say, I think I'd really like to go a different direction, or I thought we were going to talk about this instead, or this is important to me right now. You have that power as the client.
Yes, Carrie. So we're I'm very expressive. So yes, it is definitely about the relationship that you have with the person that you're working with. You have to take ownership of your session. And I'll have to say this in the medical field too. A lot of people are not taking ownership of their doctor's appointments as well. But with counselors, you'd say, hey, I want to work on this, because they're supposed to be building your treatment plan according to what you need and what you think your goal is. That's one reason why my organization is called Your Goal Concierge. I'm your goal concierge. I'm going to help you with your goal. And so it's just important to have that relationship and speak up for yourself. There's no power differential between you and your therapist. They are an expert in what they're an expert in, so they do understand that because they got the master's degree, but you're the expert on you, and they're there to help you work through and deal with and support you in where you're going. Right.
Well, I love this conversation, but I also want to move on because I know there's some other things I want to ask you about.
Yes.
What is your spiritual background, and how would you describe your spiritual identity today?
Okay, yes. So I have to talk about the past a little bit in order to get to today, and I won't be long-winded.
Okay.
I grew up in Missionary Baptist Church, then went to full gospel. Then being there, that's where I learned about relationship with God. And I didn't learn much about it before, but once I just learned about the relationship with God, it's like my eyes were open to the possibilities of this beautiful connection, this Father that's just for me and for other people too, but the relationship that I have is just for me and God, and I can ask for whatever I want, and it just blows my mind. And I've also believed that God lives inside of me, And I'm so grateful because I'm also I'm Christian too, so I believe in Jesus, and so because I need a savior, that's what. But you can tell that it's like I have people go through things, and they may have got a family that taught them to do things a certain way, and they just go along with it. No, I decided to do my way according to me, thinking it through and deciding that this works best for me to be Christian and believe in Jesus. Okay.
Right.
And then I also am very spiritual because I really take a hold to that part of God living inside of me. So if God lives inside of me, then I got a source to everything.
I'm curious what your experience has been in Black Christian community surrounding mental health treatment.
Okay. So I had a group that I was trying to promote that never really happened because people are not ready to have this conversation. Gary, people are not.
Okay.
The Black church, and it's not just Black churches too. It's also because I went to some actually Church of Christ churches to do some things and try to do some things, but it's just I've noticed that it really doesn't want to deal with things. It's like an ostrich with its head in the sand. It does not want to deal with the real things that's happening.
Let's pretend this is not going on. Let's pretend people are not struggling with these big issues like anxiety or OCD. Okay.
Yes. No one, they don't want to talk about them. But I would think that you could find evidence in the Bible where there was somebody who was displaying the symptoms of anxiety and how they persevered, or OCD and how they persevered. And one of my things that I always talk about is single motherhood. Like they don't want to deal with that either.
That's very prevalent.
Yes. I did my master's thesis is on that. And they didn't want to deal with it. I never got support within the church to help do a group for single mothers. Anyway, Black church and Church of Christ, white churches. So, and I mean, the reason why I'm saying this is because those are the ones that I know of. I don't know any other churches, and that's my experience with them, and it's my personal experience. I just know that that's one reason why I have another endeavor called Trial and Spirituality, which if you go to Your Goal Concierge, which is my website, yourgoalconcierge.com, there's a link that says Trial and Spirituality. And in there, it talks about small groups that people have at their homes. Actually, churches used to do this, but they have small groups at their homes about specific issues,
topics,
and find scriptures that go along with that. For example, anxiety. Let's find someone in the Bible to study who has anxiety and how they persevere through it. And that group talks about it. So that's definitely something that I am very passionate about. Let's talk about the real things.
Right. And we'll put all of the information, the websites in the show notes too, so people can click on the links. Why do you think this is? Why do you think that people have their heads buried in the sand? Because we look at the lifetime prevalence of things like anxiety and depression, and it's high. And this is not just affecting unbelievers. This is affecting believers as well. So what do you think is going on with church leadership that having the ostrich mentality?
I think it's too hard. It's too hard of a topic, and they don't want their own stuff to come out. Like there needs to be some kind of transparency that happens in their own lives.
Self-examination.
Yeah, because they probably have had it. Everybody has some anxiety, okay? Everybody has a little bit of it.
Sure, yeah.
So that means you have to address your own stuff, right? Just like with counseling, that's what's so great about. That's one of the reasons why I decided to do my master's in clinical mental health counseling, because I needed to evaluate myself before I could even sit in the room with somebody else, and I'm not sure they're willing to evaluate themselves. So then they don't address their flock.
Right. talk with me a little bit about your experience regarding racism, Black issues related to counseling, because I know you and I have had some conversations surrounding this. There maybe are some white therapists that don't want to look at their own experiences or their own potential biases, that may have a hard time seeing someone of another race or cultural group, and vice versa too.
Well, yeah. So being a Black woman, it's, it really is a conversation going on right now. And I was just telling a friend of mine who is a white woman about it. It's an everyday thing. They were talking about the protest that was happening. Mm-hmm. And I said, there's no reason for me to get out in the streets and protest. It's a protest that I get up every day and not succumb to the weight of the world that I feel as a Black woman, and knowing that the people around me who are close to me could easily be killed, or I could be killed at any point, just because of my skin, which I consider, and a lot of Black people don't even think this way, but Zora Neale Hurston kind of summed it up. She's one of my role models. Is that my race is only a part of who I am. Like, that's just like
right.
Brown coloring on top. Like, there's so much of me that it doesn't have anything to do with my race, but it's just one of the, parts. Just like I am, I love to giggle. It's the same thing. It's just one of the things. So everybody puts so much merit on it, and seeing the differences in us when there's so many similarities. My experience with racism is every day. Like, I hear it, I feel it, I see it all the time. And I can tell you many stories. One thing is I get, and this is what I feel, that because of who I am, and I love creating, having ideas and launching things, but I've had many circumstances where people did not want to see the merit in what I was saying and what I was doing until somebody white was interested in it. I was capitalized on in some kind of way by someone who's white on a regular basis. That's a normal thing. There's always circumstances where someone wants to capitalize on what I have, which, as a Black person, I'm never going to have as much as, even though I'm working on trying to create my own, dynasty. But like, there is just historical wealth that people who are white have that I will never be able to match, like, because I'm working towards that. I started from the bottom. So, but there's always someone who tries to align with me to try to capitalize on me. Even my supervisor that I had.
So, like, for example, people wanting you to do work for free or expecting that from you and so forth. Yes. Work for free. and that's not even, that's normal. But also, I'm the kind of person where I get in and I jump full speed ahead into organizations and to opportunities. And so I just give away so much information, and I'm not paid the way that I see my counterpart being paid, or the information is taken and I'm not appreciated for what I gave at all. Yeah. So that occurs. And that's the part that hurts me sometimes. But I have to just, I've spent some time with God on that. And what God has for me is for me. And whatever I gave away was what needed to be given away. And do you think that people could benefit sometimes from going to a therapist of a different race?
Of course. I know I've been to several people who are not my race, and I got something out of each one of them. Like, beautiful stories. Whenever I was in a room with someone, I had a white male one time through my EAP program when I worked at Vanderbilt. And I only met with him one time because he was point blank, told me exactly what I needed to say. He affirmed me, and I was on my way. I didn't need to go back. I was good.
That's all you needed.
I just needed someone to affirm me and affirm things that I didn't know. Because he talked about the exhaustion that you have in between two programs, getting my bachelor's and getting my master's, and how that lull in between there, I was not trying to give myself rest. I was ready to go to the next thing. And he was telling me, no, this is the time to rest. It's all right. Your life is not going to crumble, those kind of things. So it was great seeing a white male, but also, I had a Black older woman who I needed because she was helpful, and there was transference that I felt with her that I wanted and I needed, because I needed a mother-like figure at that moment in my life. I needed it, and I got it from her. It was a beautiful relationship. It was not but it was very psychoanalytic. So that was the part that I was missing. She didn't give me much of that, but I found that somewhere else. So I think that every relationship that we have in our lives, not just counselors, is something that you need in your life. You call it into your life to happen for you. So just look around and you'll find the right people for you.
And I think we have so much to learn from each other. People that are similar to us and people that are different than us, people that look different than us, people that think different than us, and people that have different backgrounds. And if we just keep our mind open to what we have to receive from that person, like you were saying, I think it's a great thing. Unfortunately, a lot of times we get so closed-fisted to our position or stance on something that we are not willing to look at what's the other side, and why does this person feel so strongly about this? Why does this person who's out in the street protesting, why do they feel so strongly about that? Why is this person at home who feels very passionate about these issues, but they're not protesting, and so forth? Kind of like you talked to a little bit about. Is there anything, I guess, that you would want to say just as encouragement to Christian Black women? I know that you're a double minority in a sense because, there's somewhat male privilege in our society, whether we want to admit that or not. Men are often paid more for the same positions than women. You're also a racial minority. And a lot of times what I've seen in my practice is that African-American women just kind of put up with a lot of things that they don't necessarily need to put up with. And sometimes they need somebody to speak into that space and say, hey, you can set a boundary there, or you don't have to do that, or you're doing too much, let go, get some help. I don't know, maybe I'm stealing your thunder, but.
No, I remember, I love that you had a chalkboard in the lobby of your practice, of the suite that I worked out of. I didn't work out her practice. I worked out of the suite, but she took care of the lobby and everything else. And there was a chalkboard coffee table, and I would write on that thing all the time. And one thing I put on there was, I have done enough. And that's something that I was speaking to myself, but Black women and all the people that seem to be my clients, individuals that are type A, people who are running to get things accomplished that they feel that they need to get accomplished in life, but they don't give themselves rest and self-love. And so they have to decide something. They have to decide that they've done enough. I've done enough. The thing is, people are going around saying, I am enough, right? But the thing is, for these people, and those are my clients, the ones that need that message, I have done enough. I want to give them rest. Let's be strategic about the next step you take. Let's not just go right into something else. Let's decide. that this is the next thing for me. And so I find that with Black women, it's a crushing feeling of all the things that I have to do. I have to manage my relationship with my male friend or my partner, my children. Oh, we're doing virtual school right now. My business, my boss, my I also feel the burden of the whole Black community. Like it is felt, because with every person, like recently we just had another black male murder. It's just weighs down on us, and it makes us want to run to do something to fix it. But I've done enough. And another affirmation I would love to give is that I just recently started, and it felt so good, was I am at peace with the progress in my life. That made me just do a deep breath, because I am. If I could just be at peace at the progress, because you have done, I mean, just take, like, you get success amnesia and you think that you didn't do a lot, but if you sit and think about all the things you have done, then you can sit and think about what you're grateful for. It'll make you sit down and be strategic about the next thing that you're going to do.
Because progress is more important than perfection.
Yes!
Yeah, good. I love that. All right. So at the end of every podcast, because this is called Hope for Anxiety and OCD, I like to ask all the guests to share a story of hope, which is a time that you received hope from God or another person in your life.
Okay. I received hope when I had a very traumatic scenario happen. I had a fear of losing a child before like losing a child or my child dying before I died. That was my fear. And then it happened. Yeah. And it broke me down, and it helped me see all the people around me who were capitalizing on me taking on the responsibility of so much. So I went through a depression, and I reached out to a therapist, and my hope came from my daughter looking at me, and she was the one that walked me to the car in the middle of my ectopic pregnancy and put me in the car, put the seatbelt around me, and said, my daughter was 8. No, 7. And she put me in the car, put the seatbelt around me, and said, Mama is going to be okay. And I knew that came from an inner part of her. Like, that wasn't a 7-year-old talking.
Sure.
Right? That was God telling me that this is for a reason. All of this is for a reason. You're going to be okay. And in the middle of it, I have received that hope. And there was a peace that I had, even though I was in pain. There was a peace that I had, because ultimately the version of who I am now is so much greater than I could ever been. I would never be in a point where I can say I'm at peace with my progress, or even give myself the self-care and the self-love, if I had not shed all those people around me who were sucking from me and taking all of my energy and taking all of my love and not putting in anything. So that's my story of hope.
Thank you for sharing that. It is really those hard times that we go through that are transformative for us the most. And we can look back and go, oh, wow, that was a really hard situation. But if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't have reaped this benefit over here. And I can be thankful for that. And you never know who you're going to meet who may be walking through similar circumstances that you can encourage as well.
Yeah.
So, and side note, Erica's daughter is really cool too. So. She's fun. She's a fun human being. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on the show and for talking about try-on therapy and how we can find a good therapeutic fit. And thank you for talking to me about hard sayings about racial issues and letting me ask you those questions as well. I think that's awesome.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor. Thank you so much for reaching out to me to be on here. I would love to come back if you want me to talk about something else or whatever.
All right. Everyone, I had no idea that Erica was going to speak so strongly about her experience related to mental health in the Black church. And remember, this is just one person's experience that we're interviewing. And so I would love, it's on my wish list bulletin board for guests. I would love to talk with a Black pastor who feels like that they really get and support mental health. So if that's you and you are listening, or you know of a pastor, or this is your pastor and you say, Carrie, you absolutely need to talk with them, please get them in touch with me. You can always reach us on hopeforanxietyandocd.com. Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you feel like our content is valuable, I really hope that you will tell a friend and say, hey, I found this podcast and I think you might be interested. Why don't you give it a listen? I'm sure you know somebody that needs a little hope. Hope for Anxiety and OCD is a production of By the Well Counseling in Smyrna, Tennessee. Our original music is by Brandon Mangrum, and audio editing is completed by Benjamin Bynum. Until next time, may you be comforted by God's great love for you.